The Gaza Strip is once again trembling, and this time, it's not just another violent flare-up, but something far more profound. Israel has officially claimed to launch a massive ground operation unlike anything the region has ever seen. Residents of Gaza are being warned. Leave while you still can. But where can they go, and what will follow them tomorrow? Everything is changing before our eyes, and the consequences may be irreversible. The only real question now is, how far is Israel willing to go? Friends, support us. Our channel is under attack by those who fear the truth. We speak about what others prefer to hide. And that's exactly why we are blocked, why our views are suppressed. If you want the truth to continue to be heard, subscribe right now, hit the like button, and share this video with your friends. We work for you. We are not afraid to speak openly. And with your support, we will not be silenced. Israel is moving forward with preparations for its largest ground campaign in Gaza in decades. And make no mistake, this is not mere rhetoric or political theater. It is a concrete reality unfolding in real time, broadcast to the entire world. In his recent address from a subterranean Air Force command post, Netanyahu made it clear the destruction of 50 so-called terror towers in Gaza was only a prelude. The real centerpiece is just beginning. A full-scale ground invasion. His message was not vague, not symbolic. It was a direct warning delivered with steel in his voice. You have been told, leave now. Behind those words lies the chilling truth that the Israel Defense Forces are already mobilizing and moving in. While Israel insists it will do everything possible to minimize civilian harm, the situation is escalating at breathtaking speed. It is not shifting by the week or even by the day, but by the hour. But here's what many people miss. On August 20th, Israel's defense ministry approved a plan ominously titled Chariots of Gideon II. That decision revealed that Israel was not simply reacting to sporadic violence. It was preparing for something larger, something transformational. Defense Minister Israel Katz put it bluntly, Gaza will change its face and never be the same again. Those words sounded less like speculation and more like a manifesto. And Netanyahu added another bombshell. Once this operation is over, Israel doesn't simply want to withdraw and leave ruins behind. It intends to establish a civilian administration inside Gaza. Let that sink in. This isn't about a temporary occupation. It's about rewriting Gaza's future. But what exactly does civilian government mean? Will it be chosen by Palestinians themselves, installed by Israel, managed by an international coalition? No one knows yet. What is clear is that whatever happens will have sweeping consequences for the Middle East and beyond. Why now? Why such urgency? The spark was bloodshed. On September 8th, in Jerusalem, 2 Palestinians stormed a bus at the Ramat Junction and opened fire with homemade Carlo submachine guns. 6 Israelis were killed before the attackers were gunned down. Within hours, Israeli authorities accused Hamas of orchestrating the assault, and the conclusion was immediate. Killing individual terrorists was no longer enough. The entire infrastructure that breeds and supports them had to be dismantled. That is the logic behind this operation. Israeli intelligence claims many of the destroyed buildings in Gaza were used as Hamas bases for planning and coordination. Netanyahu warned the nation, this will not be quick. It will take time, resources, and patience. According to some reports, the campaign may not conclude until 2026, and by then, as many as 130,000 reservists could be mobilized. That staggering number underscores the scale of what lies ahead. Urban warfare in one of the most densely populated areas in the world. And yet, amid the roar of airstrikes, Israel highlights its humanitarian efforts. Officials stress that civilians are warned before attacks. Leaflets dropped, phone calls made, announcements on local media. This is not only about saving lives, it is also about shaping the global narrative. Israel wants to show itself as moral, measured, and precise. But here lies the paradox. For ordinary people in Gaza, the situation is already catastrophic. Until recently, Israel observed tactical pauses to allow aid convoys through. But as of August 29th, those pauses were cancelled. On paper, Israel pledged to continue facilitating humanitarian aid. In practice, shortages are spreading. Food, clean water, medicine, fuel. Hospitals are collapsing under pressure. Families flee, but have no real refuge. They live in constant fear and in complete uncertainty. This is not just a war of bombs and bullets. It is a war of endurance, and Hamas knows it. Even if its infrastructure is battered, its underground networks of tunnels and hidden arsenals remain. In asymmetric conflict, survival itself is victory. For Hamas, every civilian tragedy becomes propaganda and a weapon. Israel may win on the battlefield, but can it win the battle of perception? That remains to be seen. Meanwhile, the international community stands frozen. Washington reiterates Israel's right to self-defense but avoids endorsing permanent occupation. Europe calls for restraint but remains divided. The United Nations debates but delivers nothing binding. This leaves Israel with both power and responsibility. With no external force stepping in to impose limits, Israel now holds Gaza's fate in its hands. But with that comes enormous risk. The deeper it goes, the greater the burden of reconstruction, and the higher the chance of backlash. At the same time, there is the global stage, where the perception of Israel's actions matters as much as the results on the ground. Western capitals are torn between solidarity with Israel and unease over the images of destruction pouring out of Gaza. Public opinion is shifting fast, particularly in Europe, where mass protests have already erupted. Leaders know they cannot ignore the humanitarian catastrophe, but they also hesitate to put pressure on Israel at a time when alliances are fragile. The longer this campaign drags on, the harder it will be for Israel to sustain international goodwill, and the more it risks becoming isolated. A nation fighting not only Hamas, but also the weight of world opinion. The scale of military mobilization is transforming Israeli society itself. Drafting 130,000 reservists means businesses lose employees, universities lose students, families lose fathers, mothers, sons, and daughters to the battlefield and an economy under strain. It is a sacrifice of national proportions, and Israel seems prepared to bear it. The gamble is stark. Endure massive hardship now to create long-term security. But if the gamble fails, the nation could find itself trapped in the very cycle of violence it seeks to end. And what of Gaza's future? Even if Hamas is broken, who steps in to govern? Who restores schools, hospitals, power grids? Who enforces order on the streets? Without answers, chaos is almost guaranteed. History teaches us that power vacuums in this region rarely bring peace. They bring new militias, rival factions, and even foreign actors eager to exploit the void. Netanyahu's promise of a civilian administration sounds hopeful on the surface, but without a detailed plan, it risks being an illusion. The humanitarian crisis is already spiraling. Without fuel, hospitals can't run generators. Without aid convoys, malnutrition spreads. Without medicine, minor injuries turn fatal. Neighbors fear refugee flows, NGOs warn of collapse, and yet the fighting continues, indifferent to human need. For Hamas, this very disaster is a strategy. Suffering becomes a weapon to delegitimize Israel in the eyes of the world. And in the age of social media, images of tragedy travel faster than any government explanation. Netanyahu is preparing his citizens for a long struggle. His rhetoric has shifted from urgency to endurance. This is not about days or weeks. It is about months, even years. It is not about containment, but transformation. He insists that Gaza will not be the same again. And he may be right. Israel is no longer aiming to suppress its enemy. It is aiming to rewrite the very reality of Gaza itself. Still, risks loom everywhere. The deeper Israeli forces advance into Gaza streets, the more brutal the fighting will become. Urban warfare is unforgiving. Tunnels, hidden explosives, fighters blending into civilians. Every block becomes a battlefield. Every delay drains morale. Every civilian death weakens international patience. And yet, the operation moves forward, step by step, building momentum like a tide that cannot be turned back. Another layer to this story is the regional ripple effect, which cannot be underestimated. Gaza may be the epicenter of the fighting, but its tremors are felt across the Middle East. Countries like Egypt and Jordan watch nervously, knowing that any large-scale Israeli advance could trigger unrest within their own borders. Iran, always a shadow player in conflicts involving Hamas, is weighing how far it should go in backing its proxy without igniting a direct confrontation with Israel. Every strike in Gaza echoes through the halls of power in Cairo, Amman, Tehran, and Riyadh. This operation, therefore, is not only a war against Hamas, but a test of how the entire region will respond to a dramatic reshaping of the status quo. On the Palestinian side, the costs are even more staggering. Entire neighborhoods have been reduced to rubble, families torn apart, futures erased. For young people in Gaza, who have known nothing but blockade and war, the destruction of homes, schools, and hospitals only deepens despair. And despair is fertile ground for radicalization. Israel may succeed in crushing Hamas's military infrastructure, but will it also create a new generation more desperate and more determined than the last? That question haunts every explosion, every funeral, every empty marketplace. Another overlooked factor is the psychological toll of endless conflict. Israelis live under constant alerts, their children raised in the shadow of war. Palestinians in Gaza face the nightly terror of drones and jets overhead. Trauma seeps into the collective consciousness of both peoples. This is not just about territory or politics. It's about two societies being reshaped by fear and anger. The long-term scars of this war may run deeper than any military victory, shaping attitudes for decades and making reconciliation even harder to imagine. Technology also plays a decisive role in this war. Israel's precision-guided munitions, drones, and surveillance tools give it overwhelming superiority, but Hamas counters with asymmetric tactics, tunnels invisible to satellites, low-cost rockets that can disrupt civilian life, and the ability to melt into the civilian population. It's a clash, not just of armies, but of strategies, with one side relying on high-tech dominance and the other on the resilience of guerrilla warfare. The outcome will likely determine not just the future of Gaza, but the future of urban combat doctrine worldwide. Yet, for all of Israel's planning and firepower, uncertainty looms large. Military operations are unpredictable by nature, and Gaza is one of the hardest environments on Earth for ground campaigns. A single ambush in a tunnel, a single miscalculation that leads to mass civilian casualties, could change the entire trajectory of the war. History is littered with examples of powerful armies humbled by smaller determined forces. Israel is aware of this risk, but once the tanks roll in, control over events begins to slip. War is a machine that often devours the plans of those who unleash it. Meanwhile, the specter of escalation hovers in the background. What happens if Hezbollah in Lebanon decides to open a northern front? What if Iran begins funneling more advanced weaponry into the conflict? What if the West Bank erupts in simultaneous violence? The Gaza operation may be intended as a contained mission, but the Middle East rarely obeys containment. The interconnectedness of its conflicts means that one spark can ignite many fires, and Israel could find itself fighting on multiple fronts before it even finishes its campaign in Gaza. Beyond the battlefield lies the challenge of reconstruction, which may be even more daunting than the war itself. If Israel truly intends to install a civilian administration, who will rebuild the shattered infrastructure? Who will provide the billions in aid required to make Gaza livable again? Western donors may hesitate, Arab states may refuse, and Israel itself may balk at footing the bill for territory it does not want to annex. Without a clear plan, Gaza risks becoming a permanent wasteland, neither destroyed nor rebuilt, suspended in endless suffering. And so we arrive at the bigger picture. The Middle East is at a crossroads. Will this operation mark the beginning of a new, more stable order? Or will it ignite a fresh spiral of violence that engulfs not just Gaza, but the entire region? For now, no one knows. What is certain is that Gaza, as we knew it, is disappearing. In its place, something new, fragile, uncertain, and potentially explosive is being born. Years from now, history books may describe these days as the turning point. The moment when Israel tried to fundamentally reshape Gaza. Whether it succeeds or fails will define not only the future of Palestinians and Israelis, but the balance of power across the Middle East. We may be witnessing the first lines of a new chapter, but what will it be called? Liberation or catastrophe? Friends, support us. Our channel is under attack from those who fear the truth. We speak about what others stay silent on. And that is exactly why we are blocked, why our views are suppressed. If you want the truth to continue to be heard, subscribe right now, hit the like button, and share this video with your friends. We work for you, we are not afraid to speak openly, and with your support we will not be silenced.